There's something that we just kind of stumbled upon that I think is worth mentioning, and I have a lot to say about this, which is using your sales force, using your sales team as a litmus test for brand ideas. So if you are at the stage in your business where you're big enough to have if you have one salesperson, or if you're still the salesperson, that's actually totally fine. But if you have like a team of 2 or 3 or 4 where you can actually use this at scale, your sales force is the ultimate testing ground, proving ground for brand concepts. And so what I found incredibly useful is taking things that I think will work at the brand level, at the marketing level, and trying it out in sales meetings. So if so stand-up comedians talk a lot about open mic nights as where they go to work out material. You as a contractor, your estimates, your design meetings, your whatever you call them are your open mic nights. So you get to go there and try out these different things in a microcosm, not in public, not displayed en masse, just with one individual. And what you're paying attention to is, does this idea, this soundbite, this part of our story that I've uncovered, this little bit of copy that I think would work well on our website, does this get heads nodding? Does this elicit some sort of response from the person I'm selling to? And you'll notice if you hit pay dirt on this, you'll see your customers go, oh yeah. You'll see it in their body. They'll be like, yeah, totally. I love that. That makes sense. They'll come closer to you. They'll feel trust with you. And it's so palpable. But here's the flip side. And I'm saying this from experience because I do this all the time. 70% of the time it's not going to work. Okay. Like not all your ideas are good. You're going to try it. You'll see this. You'll have this thing that you thought was a stroke of genius. And then you'll kind of like, you'll deliver it in an appointment, and they'll just be like, huh? And then that's your little sign. Okay, this probably doesn't belong on the website. I thought it was a good idea, but I've clearly I'm wrong. Back to the drawing board. So when here's another great point to take this from abstract and ethereal, conceptual to very, very real. You use your estimates as an open mic night to work out material, and the stuff that floats to the top after you try it 10 times and it seems to be working, then it's like, hey, I actually think this is a really important part of our story. Where does this fit in our brand narrative?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that not, so Company Cam's over 200 people. Most of the time, by the time you reach 200 people, the departments have all kind of like broken off. They're siloed off pretty well. One of our big advantages is that our brand person and our sales enablement person are like really closely intertwined, because those sales calls are like, that's where the war is taking place. That's like the front lines.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeding brand and messaging over there and it's just not resonating, it's not working, they say it, they talk about it, they illustrate it, they demonstrate it, and it's like just falling flat. That's not me to try. It's not my job to then try and push harder and be like, no, you're not doing it right. No, Correct. It's my job to be like, okay, we're obviously something is like, people still like our product, but the way we're talking about it is not great, and they're not resonating with that. And so there's this cycle that has to happen. And some of that is too, that if let's say that you've got 3 sales guys out there and you have this, you formulate your why, you put some structure around it, you kind of put some messaging around it, and you send it out with these sales guys. And it just falls flat. Like maybe they get in front of 10 customers and it just falls flat. You have to ask yourself, is our messaging falling flat? Is our brand just not resonating? Or are these, like we talked about, customer differentiation and audience differentiation? Maybe these aren't the right people.
That could also be true.
And for some people, I mean, if we're thinking about how you differentiate yourself as a business, and let's say that maybe your primary differentiator is price. That is like, I would really encourage you to hunt backward for your why. Why do you differentiate by price? Why do you like offer a really low price? Is it because you want to serve more people? Is it because that not you want to be able to serve the people that can't afford this other great thing, but you want to provide it at a value, you want to provide a valuable service to these people? Because now we're starting to uncover that next layer, right? And for some people, some audiences, it might just be about price, and they don't care about quality. They don't care about your why. They don't care about your story. They are just out to find the cheapest person they can possibly find. And I would argue, like, if your why is about excellent product, excellent service, and like durability, environmental, like any one of those things, lowest price is probably not going to be your best customer. And that's okay. That's okay. Because it's your brand, to stoop low to serve that customer means that you are actually sacrificing your brand to do that. And your brand that you're cultivating starts to take a hit when you start doing that over and over and over again. Yeah. But like that is the testing ground for, are we resonating? Are we even something special? And you know, if you've been in business for long enough, this is my own philosophy, and it happens every time we get into a branding project, is that I go into that project 100% believing that thing that we talk about, like that's buried, 100% believing that there's something there. Yeah. That if it takes 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, I 100% believe that it's there. It's just about surfacing it. And it sometimes that takes like little work. Oh yeah, you guys know exactly why you're in business and what makes you tick. And sometimes people just don't, and that's okay.
You know, it's the parallels between business and like the human species are really clear. And I'm getting again kind of philosophical here, but every individual goes through the same journey as a person. In your teenage years, in your early 20s, for some people it happens sooner, for some people it happens later. But at some point, every I would say, you know, evolved person who wants to self-actualize and get the most out of life goes through the painful exercise of asking, who am I? Like, who am I in this world? And if you're lucky and you have a good support system and you kind of maybe do some work on this, maybe that involves some counseling, maybe that involves some mentorship, maybe that involves some prayer. Like it's, you know, it looks different for every person. But but my point is, you get to a point where you actually go, you know what? I know who I am in the world, and all of a sudden things get a whole lot easier for you, you because you're attracting the people you want to hang out with, you're repelling the people you don't. You have some swagger, you have some confidence. This isn't this angsty, confused, and existential stage that you were at when you were 16 or 17. For me, it was like 18 to 21, brutal. And so, but here's my point is, businesses operate in the exact same. Businesses are entities too, and you will go through your own journey as well. And the questions one needs to ask oneself aren't actually that dissimilar. One's just an individual. The other one is an entity with many individuals. It's a team, it's a group, it's an organization. And I just think the parallels between those two are kind of compelling. I wanted to bring up go ahead.
So you open up like a really interesting philosophical thought on branding, which is it is all about identity. And that like you said, we all hunt through that for our identity, and uncovering our own identity is not that much dissimilar. That's why if you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he has a process of doing it as an individual and doing it as an organization. And it's, identity is a big deal that we don't often think about. And you describe that like parallel perfectly. And if that helps people to think about like their organization as an individual with an identity, that's a really great framework to think about that we naturally can process as an individual identity and not necessarily as an organizational identity.
I think that's such an easier place to start for someone that is running their business, rather than graphic design terminology and hex colors and like all. You can really get into a world that you're unfamiliar with pretty quickly in this arena, and that's kind of what I like. Why I was excited to have you want to just talk about this, like the display versus make angle. Like, start with who you are and go from there and build from there. And like you said, trust that there is there is something there. It might take you a little while to figure that out, but there is something underneath the surface in that subtext. The other, I wanted to make a comment about one other guardrail that I think needs to exist when talking about brand, and that is like, is it true? Listen, if you like that clip, you can watch the full episode by clicking here. If you're not yet subscribed, you probably should be, and you can do that by clicking right here.